Welcome back, UFL fans, for the final weekend of the UFL regular season. We're going to have the Week 10 picks up in a moment on my whiteboard. But before we get into that, what a disappointing loss last night for the DC Defenders as they get ready for the big battle against the Battlehawks of St. Louis this upcoming weekend. But a bad loss they took against the Houston Roughnecks. And for any sports bettor out there, I did not see that one coming. St. Louis Battlehawks in their first game blew out the San Antonio Promise, and that's the reason why the over and under went over. So I took a loss on that. I had taken the under, but hopefully you guys did well this weekend. My final record for the weekend was, I believe, was 8 wins. 8 wins, and I believe I had 8 wins, right? I went, okay, let me get this right. I went 3-1 with the money line. Then on the over and unders, I had a 2-1-1 record. And then against the spread, I was 3-1. So that pushed my money line record for the season at, believe it's at 24 wins, 12 losses. My over and unders are at 17 wins, 10 losses, one tie. I believe that tie was this past weekend on a push with the Defenders and Roughnecks. And then against the spread, I at the current moment 20 wins, 11 losses, and one tie. We could do a whole lot better, you know, but we came off a fantastic weekend the weekend before where we went 11-1, and then we come back and we posted up a record of 8-3-1, if I'm correct. We went 8-3-1. We were hoping to cash in on a few of these games. If you took the early lines, the Monday morning early lines, like I always try to give you that edge as soon as the sports books and the sports app starts showing you the early lines, we try to jump on it to get that edge. If you had done that on my previous video, then you would have done well with me on the sports app because I had gone 3-0 with the Renegades game and 3-0 with the Stallions victory. Okay, those were the only two games I claimed victory on the sports app. The other two games I did not. The St. Louis Battlehawks going 2-1, taking the over killed me on that. I could have been 3-0, went 2-1, so I lost that single game. Parlay, 3-leg single game parlay going 2-1, and then I just bombed with the Defenders, where the DC just played a bad football game against a team of the Houston Roughnecks who just came into the game. They were just motivated. They just wanted to pounce on the DC Defenders, and they did. So that kind of hurt all the sports betting for UFL fans across the board in that game. But we did go 8-3-1. Hopefully, you guys did some mixing and matching and ended up taking those early lines in your sports apps. And maybe you did well that Monday morning when you saw the early lines. That's the reason why I try to give you this edge early on Monday morning. So if you saw my video that I posted up over the weekend, Memorial Day weekend, I was at Atlantic City Resorts. Okay, resorts at Atlantic City. And I went to DraftKings, the sports book there, and the lines were all different, including the over and unders. And I had $60 on me. I was playing $10 parlay tickets. So I did 6 tickets at $10 to pay over $400. Each ticket had either a 9-leg parlay or the final one had a 12-leg parlay. I lost on all of them because the first game, St. Louis, I had taken the under, but because it was a blowout, I did not expect San Antonio to give up 39. I mean, I would have been good with 29. And the game went over, and I lost that ticket. Otherwise, I would have had, believe it or not, I would have had 5 tickets because I had a 9-leg parlay going with the first 3 games. And I would have paid off on that one over 400, and I believe over one of the tickets was $437. I think I posted that up on the video. So I would have won on that. Then I did a 12-leg parlay, just wanted to put all the games together, and then just lost yet again with the St. Louis game on the over and under. But I would have lost anyway because even if that game would have gotten over and I would have done well with the under, the defenders let me down, getting upset by the Houston Roughnecks. And with that said, well, we got some interesting matchups coming up, and this is going to be a difficult weekend, definitely. I believe this is going to be the most hurtful weekend for sports bettors because I'm looking across at the early lines and I'm like, I like some of them, but at the same time, I have to think that the coaching staffs of every team this weekend especially the ones that are going into the playoffs, more than likely the coaches are going to be resting players to get ready for the playoff matches, or they're going to be rotating in and out players. There could be situations where the quarterback's going to play the first half or first quarter, then he's going to get pulled for the backup. There could be situations where the bad teams are going to open up their playbooks and they're going to throw whoever they could throw into the game to get playing time, whatnot, end the season on a high note, whatever. So with that said, this is going to be a difficult one to pick. And we're going to start off with the best game of the weekend. And I know you guys have been waiting for this one. St. Louis Battlehawks, 7-2 against the DC Defenders at 6-3. This is on record and on paper and in my notes, probably the best game of the weekend. However, because DC got upset and maybe they were looking ahead to this matchup, this game may not even carry the value it had DC won. And with that said, let me just say this. The reason is both these teams, right, going into this weekend would have been battling for top division, right? So now what you have is a situation where maybe the DC coach is going to say, you know what? We still want to win this game to send a message. But at the same time, we got to be careful we don't hurt any of our players as well. And St. Louis is going to be doing the same thing. St. Louis is 7-2. The worst that could happen, they drop to 7-3, and DC goes to 7-3. Yeah, there's a little bit of this home field advantage type of stuff in the playoffs, but usually in the UFO, because of the fact that they might be playing at neutral sites, other than St. Louis, if they take it all away, they'll be at their own home place for the championship, which, in the beginning of the year was one of my top dogs to win the whole thing, St. Louis, and they're certainly playing like it, right? With the best record in the UFL at 7-2. And here it is. The DC Defenders dropped the game. Maybe they were thinking ahead. And this goes back to what I was saying. Coaching staffs on both teams might say, you know what? More likely, we might play each other later on. And we got to figure out what we're going to do. Are we resting players, or are we going to go ahead and as the DC coach, beat the St. Louis Battlehawks and send a message? I'm thinking the defenders may want to play their starters because I do not like the way their secondary, undisciplined football. I don't like the way they're playing on defense. Let's be realistic. That interior line for the DC Defenders is a good interior line. Okay, that Jordan Wallace should be in the NFL. He is just a man beast right now on that interior line. And he's probably the reason why they're very stout with the rushing game. Okay, every now and then you're going to give up a big play here and there, but they're very good. He's got this awesome push towards the quarterback, and he's doing very well. He's getting to the quarterback. He's going to be a problem for the St. Louis offensive line. As far as St. Louis, okay, they got two edge rushers. Number 7, Peter, if that's his first name. I believe that's his first name. He has a last name that I do have trouble pronouncing, and I'm very sorry for that. Don't mean to be disrespectful. But I'm not being disrespectful as far as recognizing who he is, because for the past 2 seasons, he's been a wrecking crew all by himself getting to quarterbacks. To me, I call him the closer. That's his nickname to me, the closer. Maybe his teammates already nicknamed him that. And the reason I'm saying that, how many times have we seen number 7, the edge rusher for the St. Louis Battlehawks, close out games with key sacks? And he continues to do it. I believe he led the league in sacks last year, and I believe he's doing it now this year. The guy's just a tremendous pass rusher. Why this guy's not in the NFL, I don't understand. Because if I was an NFL coach and you get down to the 2-minute warning and the game's on the line, these are guys I want to have on a team, okay? These are edge rushers. Maybe there's a weakness in his game or something. I don't see it. Every week out for the last 2 seasons, this guy's been a wrecking crew. Freeney's on the other side. This gives St. Louis two of the best edge rushers in the league. And then behind them, and not to take away anything from the interior line, because to get those guys freed up, the interior line's got to be doing well, which they are. Then you go to the linebacking unit, Mike Rose, Willie Harvey. I believe that's his name, Willie Harvey. Both those guys are fantastic linebackers. They can hit, they can get at you. The secondary, same thing. Every now and then they make big plays back there. They do struggle at times. They're going to go up against a better receiving unit than they've seen in a while. And DC, they like to throw the ball around with Jordan Ta'amu, who I think is going to be the MVP simply because Bryce Perkins hasn't really played these past 2 weekends. But I think Jordan Ta'amu is going to be the MVP. But in this game, they're going up probably the best receiving unit in the league with Powell, Mickens, Ty Scott, Braylon Sanders, and they also have two good tight ends back there. They also have Chris Rowland, who's a threat when he comes out of the backfield. Their running game's getting a little bit better. They got Jackson back there who's running the ball pretty good. So this is the best matchup of the weekend. However, I'm going to take St. Louis on the money line. That's a risk in itself because I don't know how the coaching staff's going to play these players. I'm taking the over at 45.5. I believe there's going to be a lot of scoring in this game. I think somewhere about 50 combined points could be at this game. I don't see them going under 45.5, although I could be wrong. And then against the spread, right now they got St. Louis at +1 as the underdog. That's crazy. I'm going to be honest with you. That's crazy. St. Louis, the underdog, when to me, on paper, at least, they're a much better team. In fact, probably the only weakness I see going into this game will be if Hakeem Butler will play at all. Remember, he's been dealt with a hamstring situation for this past year. It really limited him. Otherwise, he would have crazy numbers. He's a unbelievable wide receiver in the UFO who cannot be stopped. Let's be real. He's just a beast. I mean, the guy stands at 6'5", 6'4", I believe, and he's 225, and he's got speed to go with it. I mean, this guy's a threat. And then you add Ja'Cour Pearson, who's coming off a fantastic game against San Antonio. Now, against that secondary of DC, that could be a problem, especially when Jacob Salas comes out of the backfield and goes one-on-one with their linebackers. I don't think DC's got – they got good linebackers, but I don't think they got a guy that can match Jacob Salas' speed. But again, we don't know how St. Louis is going to play their players this weekend. This is one of the reasons why it's a risk to take St. Louis. But being that it's +1, it'll probably end up as a pick'em game. If not, at the end of the weekend, this could change to a -1. They might turn around and say, hey, we're going to take St. Louis. Vegas can do that. Okay, so they're going to try to, Vegas is not going to lose money on this game anyway. Let's be real. They're going to even it out. Money's going to go on either St. Louis. Right now, it's going to roll to St. Louis because of the +1. They're the underdog. So people are like, oh, hell yeah, we're taking this. Okay? Sharp bettors will probably jump on that, and great sports bettors know what they're looking at. Okay? Trust your eyes. And then as we get towards the end of the week, this could end up as defenders being the +1 instead of St. Louis. The defenders can end up as the underdog, right? But again, they're coming off a terrible defeat to the hands of the Houston Roughnecks, who had nothing really to play for except pride. Pride played a big part in that game. It looked like they came out, they were ready to hit. They were opportunistic. They took advantage of DC's mistakes and their undisciplined secondary, and this is why they fell to 6-3. But towards the end of the weekend, they could become the underdog. St. Louis could become the favorite. This is why I jumped on this. I took St. Louis +1. Again, just be cautious because it's the final weekend. It's week 10. All these games are going to have different meanings, and we're going to get to all of it, okay? All right. I'll be showing you the whiteboards, guys, but I want to summarize what these games are going to be, what they're going to mean to you guys early. I'm trying to give you that edge so you could run to the sports books or hit your apps. It's Monday morning, so I got to give it to the way I see it from the sports apps, right? I'm looking at all the sports apps, and they all have these lines all across, right? So I got to give it to you guys. Second game, Houston Roughnecks 4-5. Very impressive victory over the DC Defenders. Good job by CJ Johnson. I know I'm on his ass all year long about the way he coaches and stuff, but you know what? He got the team fired up this weekend. They came out red hot, and it looked like DC was going to run away with this. But when Powell caught that opening touchdown, and I was like, okay, here comes the runaway game that we were looking for. And as it turns out, Houston converted what should have been a 1-point conversion for DC. It got intercepted, and they ran it all the way back for a +2. And from that point on, it looked like Houston said, you know what, it's not going to be an easy day for DC. We're going to just keep it going. We're going to open up the playbook, which they did. The receiving unit was outstanding against DC's undisciplined secondary, and that cost them. Okay? So I'm taking in this game, right? They're going to be playing the Michigan Panthers. Tough loss for Michigan. Yet again, Bryce Perkins didn't play. However, Danny Etling did play, did very well, could have pulled off the upset. Michigan defense was kind of a letdown towards the end. That's why Birmingham was able to come back and seal victory. So now they're 6-3. I think they'll bounce back from their loss, and I think they'll hand Houston a loss. Although this is a game, yet again, it's the final weekend. Houston has pride. You know, professional football players are very, very prideful. They're not going to the playoffs. To them, this is their playoff game. If they would love to knock them out like they did to DC. Okay, so this is a motivational game for the Houston Roughnecks. I'm sure they're going to open up their playbook. They're going to let their quarterback do their thing. Okay, and so I think Michigan has to be aware of this. I don't know if Bryce Perkins is going to play. I mean, you're getting ready for the playoffs. If he's healthy enough, he's going to have to play. If this is the guy you're going to roll with, if this was the guy who was in the MVP conversation, then you're going to have to roll with this guy before you get into the playoffs. Right now, Danny Etling, I think, let me look at my notes, how many yards this guy threw. I mean, he threw for 236 yards. He was very impressive. 2 touchdowns. He hit Mariner, the wide receiver, okay? And Vaughns, they were outstanding this past weekend with Etling at quarterback, but it wasn't enough. I told you from my previous video, if Etling plays, he's more like a game manager, okay, compared to Bryce Perkins, who gives you that little extra mobility, and he becomes a threat, and he can also get the ball downfield. Just a whole different offense with Bryce Perkins, although the running game is solid with McCrary and Toa, number 35, who guy's just a human bowling ball back there. But again, the running game is solid. Don't know if that's going to be the theme for Michigan this weekend. Houston Roughnecks, they're solid on defense. Okay, Leon O'Neal, you got Benson at linebacker. They could come after you. They could enforce a lot of pain back there. Okay, this is not a defense to take lightly. They do play well. This is a tough one. Look, this is just tough all around. Final weekend of the season is always tough. Again, who's motivated? Who's not? Who's going to earn their paycheck this weekend? Who's going to play for a chance to get back to the NFL this weekend? The Panthers will be the favorite, obviously, right? Because all the money is going to roll towards them for sports bettors, right? Vegas is going to take in a ton of money for the Panthers. That's why it gets a little scary. Because right now they got them at -9.5. I don't think they're going to win this game by 10. I just don't see it because, again, I don't know how the coaching staffs are going to maneuver their players this weekend, especially the Panthers, right? If anything, they may want to start Perkins early just to get him the reps if he's healthy. Like I said, I don't know what's going on with him. And then they might pull him back in the second half. I mean, right now they're just positioning themselves to get ready to be a healthy team going into the playoffs. This is why I'm taking the +9.5 with the spread. The over and under, I'm going to take the over 44 because I just think that it's so easy to take the under with what I just said, with the way the coaches are going to play their players. I think Houston's coaching staff is going to play their players. I think they're motivated. I think CJ Johnson wants to end the season on a high note. He's got a fantastic quarterback in Jalen. And the way I look at it, I think they're going to go in there. They want to send a message. They want to knock out, not knock out, but they want to end on a high note. Hey, we beat the Defenders. Now we're going to beat the Panthers. It would be easy for me to take the money line with the Roughnecks. But yet again, here it is. Here's where lies the problem. With all the money going into the Panthers for this weekend, there's a good chance that the money line of sports bettors might want to go with the Houston Roughnecks. But with that said, I expect the Panthers to win. I just don't want these guys backing into the playoffs. I'm pretty sure Mike Nolan, who's the better head coach, got a better coaching staff, is going to let his team know I do not want to back into the playoffs. So let's win this game. Let's get healthy while we're doing it. They might stick to the running game, but I think the Roughnecks are going to make this a go. I'm going to take that plus 9.5. I'm a money line the Panthers because they're just a better team, better coach team, but they have a great running game. Okay. I don't want to sleep on the Roughnecks running game because they had a guy named Lorenzo Lingard, who came out of left field and started bowling over guys on the DC Defenders. I mean, this guy had a monster game, but I just don't see that happening in Michigan. They have a solid defense. Okay. So I'm going to take the money line on the Panthers. I'm taking the over of 44 combined score. This could be a push, guys. This could be a push, which won't hurt you because if you took the under 44, you're expecting a defensive game. That could happen, but I'm expecting 24-20, which would put it at 44, and it's a push. But I'm taking the over at 44. Maybe there's a 26-20 type game, okay? But I'm going to take the plus 9.5. I just feel like Houston's going to hang around in this game, okay? So let's move on to the next game. We got the Arlington Renegades. Finally, they win a game. After starting the season 3-1, these guys finally realize we're a much better team. Let's go out and let's blow out our opponents. Okay, they finally played up to their standards. They're 4-5. However, it was too late in the season to recover from their losses. That's why they're out of the playoffs. Arlington's 4-5. They're going to go up against the worst team in the league, the San Antonio Brahmas at 1-8. Listen, just take Arlington all the way through. Okay, we got the Renegades as the money line. The over and under is at 41. I'm just going to take the over. I'm looking at my notes. Okay, and then I'm going to take them at minus 3.5. Yet again, a weekend where Arlington's going to play a poorer team than what they are. And Arlington's just too talented to be sitting anyway at 4-5. They should not be 4-5. At worst, they should have been at 6-4 coming into this game. But they're 4-5. They're out of the playoffs. But they're a much better football team than the San Antonio Brahmas. Again, this is one of those games. What are the coaches going to do? I know Arlington's probably going to play their starters, right? They want to end on a high note. San Antonio is going to play their starters too. They want to at least end the season with one more victory. This is going to be a tough one. Again, sports bettors this weekend for the UFL are in for surprises this week. This is probably the roughest weekend to pick. Okay, so I'm trying to tell you that right now, as far as the early lines, this is how it looks. I'm going to take the Renegades. I'm a money line it. Come on. They can't beat San Antonio. Everyone's beating San Antonio. This is just not the same team that opened the season, okay? This is just a horrible team playing right now. And they certainly proved it when they got blown out by St. Louis this past weekend, okay? They do have some talented players like John Trey Kirkland. Okay, they got good running backs in Aiden Robbins, Jay Sean Corbin, Anthony McFarland. They got good tight ends, but it never transitioned onto the football field. Don't know why the coaching staff never really took advantage of some of these talented players. I know Kirkland's been having a so-so year with drops and all of that, but I just don't see them beating the Renegades. Let's be realistic and let's be real. If I was a sports bettor, everything it's going to be Renegades as the money line, the over and under. I'm taking the over at 41, right? Because the overs are constantly hitting in the UFL. And I'm going to take the minus 3.5. I mean, do they expect San Antonio to hang in there with Arlington all game? Maybe up to the late third quarter. And then I just think the Renegades, with that awesome receiving unit that they have of Tyler Vaughns, Canella, Didi Hunter out of the backfield. Excuse me for a second. I just think that this is one where we should go 3-0 on a single game 3-leg parlay, right? I think we should go 3-0 on this one this weekend. But Vegas, all the money's going to roll towards Arlington. That's obvious. So I think the spread's going to get affected as the week goes on. It might go higher. Okay, so be aware of that. Jump on it now. It's at -3.5. It could go higher because it's the final weekend. And then, of course, the final game of the weekend, we got the Birmingham Stallions, 6-3, coming off an impressive win against Michigan, against the Memphis Showboats at 2-7. So, as you know, the money line, I'm money lining the Stallions. The over and under is at 39. I'm going to go over 39. And then you got the spread at -6.5. I'm going to take it at 6.5. I'm expecting the Stallions to win this game by at least 10. But yet again, how is the coaching staff of Birmingham going to approach this game? Do they bench players? Do they let Jamar Smith play the entire game just to give him his reps? Because he did start late in the season. Appears to be the better quarterback of all the quarterbacks on the roster at the moment, because the other two are injured, Matt Corral and Alex Magoo. And I'm just not, happy with any other quarterback that comes in. Case Cook he's a game manager. So as long as he keeps it within manageable distance, Birmingham can win games. But I don't know how bad is the injury to Case Cook is. But from what I've seen with Jamar Smith, they're better off having him at the quarterback position. I just don't know how much he's going to play. With the history of the injuries at that position, they might be reluctant to even have him start, because God forbid he gets hurt. Then you're going into the playoffs with the backup to the backups to the backups. Okay, I mean that's the way it's been going for this offensive unit for Birmingham. Very talented offensive unit. Very talented. I mean, outside of maybe DC's wide receivers, this is the best group in the league of wide receivers, Birmingham Stallions. St. Louis could rival it. They got some good receivers themselves. And now they're going to be playing the Memphis Showboats. Again, Memphis is going to open up their playbook. I'm really, really upset with Memphis with the way that they got some type of musical chairs at quarterback. I don't know who's going to start this game, whether it's Williams, Dresser Wynn, or Troy Williams. I don't know, or EJ Perry, for crying out loud. I mean, this is what is going on that Memphis couldn't figure out this position as the season went along. I know there was injuries here and there to begin the season, but this situation at quarterback probably cost them more victories during the season. I don't see them beating Birmingham this weekend. The only way I see them beating Birmingham, or maybe covering that spread by taking them as the underdog with +6.5, would be if they beat Birmingham, because Birmingham's going to rest some of their starters. I just don't see it. I'm looking at my notes and I'm saying to myself, man, this is not one of those games that, they won 2 games this year, Memphis, overtime Kings. And then they came off an impressive victory the weekend before, and then they lose a game to Arlington, who came out and smoked them. So, Memphis, talented receivers, talented running backs. I put them in the same category as the San Antonio Brahmas right now. Just a group of solid players that weren't utilized the right way, just did not transition onto the field. Jim Turner's a good coach, very motivated coach, but unfortunately his quarterback situation, the OC, I don't know what's going on there. It's just a mess. I mean, there was one part of the season where I was like, oh yeah, Dresser Wynn, that's the guy you got to roll with. Then it was, oh yeah, Troy Williams gives them elevates the position because he's mobile. Now you got EJ Perry who comes in and does this, that, and I'm like, what is going on? This is not a good situation for Memphis. All the money's yet again is going to roll for Birmingham. Be careful with that. We know that the Stallions should win this game. The over and unders, I'm going to take the over at 39. That's kind of risk because the way they dangled that 39. Last weekend, Vegas went with the overs. This weekend, they got one game under 40, okay, with 39. I'm taking the over. I think maybe this game ends up like 27-20, something like that. I don't know. Maybe 23 to no, not 23, maybe 28 to 21 type of game. I don't know. The final weekend is going to play out really crazy. I'm taking a -6.5. They should be able to beat Memphis by 7, but yet again, it's the final weekend of the year. Memphis wants to end it on a high note. They're not that bad of a football team, so sports bettors are going to be on alert. In fact, this whole weekend, they should be on alert because looking from my notes, looking the way some teams came out this past weekend to play, some teams like San Antonio just decided to fold up and get ready for next season or get ready for the NFL for certain players. But this is going to be a situation where, as a sports bettor, you better be careful when you're betting this game. In fact, you better be mindful of the fact that some of these coaches are going to be benching players, rotating players. You might even just like the Michigan Panthers when I was speaking about them before. I don't know how bad this injury is with Perkins or whatever, but 2 weekends in a row where the guy was fighting for the MVP race and you just benched this guy. Again, I'm not aware of if there is an injury, it has to be something to do with a hamstring or an Achilles, something to do with his legs, or it could be a shoulder injury for all I know. And they just want to get this guy right. But at the moment, I think the MVP is going to go to Jordan Ta'amu. It depends how he plays this weekend against St. Louis. All these games right now on paper, and I'm giving you the early edge, jump on it now because I think the spreads as well as the over and unders are going to be in your favor. I pretty much think that all the teams I picked on the money line are guaranteed to win this weekend. However, week 10 always plays out funny. You're going to get guys you never heard of. You're going to get teams that are, hey, listen, we're already in the playoffs. We're one of 4 teams that could only go into the playoffs, 2 from the XFL, 2 from the USFL. Let's just play this game healthy and get out of it. You might see more running this weekend than passing, right? No one wants to get blitzed. No one wants to get an edge rusher to sack their starting quarterback, especially a playoff team, get their quarterback hurt. You might see a lot of running this weekend. So you better be on high alert as a sports bettor. Now I'm going to show you the whiteboard. I did it a little bit differently this weekend. Maybe it's because I wanted to hear myself rant, and maybe it's because I just wanted to keep the viewers in tune with how I'm doing this, because this is going to be a terrible weekend to bet. A final weekend. Even if this was the NFL, the final weekends are the worst. But this is the UFL. We're getting ready to get into the playoffs. I'm looking forward to that. I think we got 4 of the top teams that are going in. It's going to be great. But they're starting to position themselves. This is the final weekend. Coaching staffs are going to look at this weekend like, okay, what type of game plan we want? Do we want to roll in there on a high note, roll into the playoffs on a momentum? Or do we want to pull back our players and say, no, we got to get healthy before we get into the playoffs? Sometimes it works. Sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes you just go with your hunches as a coach of who's going to play, who's not going to play. So let me bring up the whiteboard and I'll put it up for you guys to really see this. Okay. Okay, that's exactly where we're going right now. You can see the Battlehawks, the Panthers, the Renegades, and the Stallions. Seems to me like I went with this type of money line all year long with these 4 teams. This is going to be tough this weekend. I mean, there's no guarantee with these games, right? And then look at the over and unders. I'm taking all the overs this weekend. Okay, so this will be, I think, the second time this season I'm taking the overs. The first time we went 4-0. I hope we could do it again. And then if you look at the against the spread, there are 2 pluses and 2 minuses. And you can see right there that plus 9.5. Okay, that's the Michigan game in which they're going to play the Houston Roughnecks. Okay, just had to lean over to make sure I was talking about the right game and looking at my notes. Yes, Houston, impressive win against DC. Okay, that's my whiteboard. Okay, so as I'm looking at those whiteboard picks for you guys, giving you the early edge, I'm also looking at the fact that when I'm looking at my notes, some of the notes that I was putting up with the games coming up, I want to make sure I didn't miss anything because I did make notes on certain players. For instance, like this kid that the past 3 weekends, Jay Sean Corbin. Um, Very impressed with this kid. Runs the ball very well. He does create problems for defenses out there. Doesn't matter how great your defense is. This is a guy that has a big heart. Looks like he'll just, despite the record of 1-8, he's just going to come at you. Arlington's going to have to be aware. They're very vulnerable in that linebacking position as well as that interior line. They're going to have to come up with an A game to stop Jay Sean Corbin and their running attack of Aiden Robbins. And hopefully Anthony McFarland plays. Okay, so I took note of that. For this weekend's game, looking at my notes, St. Louis Battlehawks against DC. Again, we don't know how much playing time. Quarterback Max Duggan continues to play okay at the position. I don't want to say he's playing great, but when he's on his game, his greatest asset right now is his running ability. He reminds me a little bit of Baker Mayfield. I know it's crazy to compare quarterbacks from the UFL to the NFL, but if you look at Max Duggan, the way he plays, like he's hyper, right? This guy looks like he's drinking like Red Bull before each play. And he plays like the minute he gets the ball, he's not even looking to throw, right? It looks like defenses aren't really rushing as much towards him as they should. Like the edge rushers are coming around, then they stop and they take an inside rush because they think that Max Duggan is going to take the ball and run. And so lots of times that helps Max Duggan because in a way it's like, okay, the rush stop. I got a little bit more time and I'm going to look for receivers. Seems to me that he's getting better at doing that, okay? But he is a guy that's going to take off and run. So Max Duggan, I really like the guy. I really do. But it's a different team that Manny Wilkins is not there. I still believe if Manny Wilkins was the quarterback all the way through, he'd be the MVP of the league because he certainly was playing like it. But that's not to take away anything from Max Duggan, okay? Let's be honest. Max Duggan is solid, okay? He's a solid quarterback. He gets the job done. He can run if be, and he makes it, there are times where he underthrows the ball and he gets great receiving help from guys like Hakeem Butler. Okay. So Hakeem Butler being the tall receiver, the big play guy, I don't know if he's going to play this weekend. I'm not even sure if Max Duggan even gets to start this game. It could be one of those play the first quarter, we're going to pull you off because you do run a lot. Maybe DC's going to try to target him, and say, you know what? If this guy decides to run, we need one guy to knock him out. And this way, he doesn't even go into the playoffs healthy. So if I'm St. Louis Battlehawks, if I'm Anthony Becht, I got to be aware of the fact that, DC could have a different agenda this weekend for this game, right? So be careful with that. And I'm looking at my notes. Arlington, right? Spring King, Perez, continues to do his thing, right? He's been consistent. He's not mobile, but he does put up numbers, okay? I mean, the guy had 2 touchdowns this past weekend. Okay, he continues to play well at the position, but he is getting up there in age, and definitely a guy that if he was a little bit more mobile would be so dangerous. He probably wouldn't even be in the UFL if he was more mobile. He'd probably be in the NFL right now as a backup. I mean, he should be in the NFL anyway as a backup. I'm sure there's teams out there that could use a guy to an emergency quarterback here and there, But I like him. He's been consistent for any spring league. That's why they call him the Spring King. Continues to do well. Then you got the running back, D.D. Hunter. Yet again, didn't see, Kalen Ballage. I had high hopes for him this season. But he's still a solid running back, Kalen Ballage. I just don't know how bad his injury is. He gets limited. doesn't run the ball as much. They stuck with D.D. Hunter, Day. That's his first name, Day Hunter. And he has 67 yards rushing this past week, and he has some big runs. And he's also a threat coming out of the backfield. He has good hands. Then you got the wide receivers, right? You got Tyler Vaughns, right? 107 yards, 1 touchdown this past weekend. He played in the NFL for a brief moment. And I think this is another guy who's still young enough to get back in the league. He definitely could help some teams out there that need wide receiving help. I hope this guy gets back into the NFL because for the brief time he was in, he was making plays. I remember me as a Pittsburgh Steelers fan, I was shocked when he got cut 2 years ago in preseason. He had one of the best preseasons of all the receivers on the Pittsburgh Steelers, and yet he got cut, released. That shocked me. And I think they brought him back last season. I'm trying to think if they brought him back during the spring or last season at OTAs or whatever. Got released again. I just him and Hakeem Butler, these 2 wide receivers, one from St. Louis and Tyler Vaughns and even Deion Kane were all Pittsburgh Steelers at one point in their careers. And I'm shocked that they're still not on their roster. They could certainly use those 3 guys right now, especially after trading George Pickens. But I really like Tyler Vaughns to get back in the NFL. I think he will. I think there's a team out there that's probably watching him and saying, this guy's got to come back to the NFL. He's just too good, along with the other 2 mentioned names, right? So Tyler Vaughns has always been very impressive for me in the UFL. Fantastic receiver. Looking at more of my notes. Jamar Smith this past weekend for Birmingham, 307 yards, 2 touchdowns. Again, what can I say? I don't know how much he's going to play this weekend. He is a threat, rushing as well as passing. And right now, I'm more impressed with his passing because he could really throw that ball down the seam and hit his targets on cue. I mean, this guy is really having a good time back there. I mean, yeah, every now and then he makes a mistake. I mean, we saw that pick 6 a couple of weekends ago, right? But he plays solid. Okay, of the quarterbacks of Birmingham, he's the healthy one. So this is why I don't know if he's going to play this game. I believe if Jamar Smith was the quarterback all year long, even though he came back to the team in May because of the injuries to Magoo and Matt Corral and Case Cookis, I mean, if he was the starting quarterback, who knows if he would have been the MVP. He's certainly playing like one, but I love the way he's playing right now at the position. He's got weapons. He's got Deion Kane, Marlon Williams, Amari Rogers. He's got Jordan Thomas, Jay Sternberg. Come on, the list goes on with the offensive of receivers that Birmingham has. And Jamar Smith, we see him on 3rd and short go for the long ball and connect. That's how much confidence he has. Okay, Skip Holt's doing a great job there with him. So that's something to look forward to. And then, he did have 30 yards rushing this past weekend, so he could do it with his legs. And in the key moment in that game against Michigan, that's what he was doing. Okay, so if you really look at Birmingham right now, they're hitting on all cylinders. Like I said, a couple of weekends ago, they should have won against St. Louis. All right, if they didn't fumble in that last drive, I believe they would have either tied or won the game with a field goal. So Jamar Smith, Birmingham, as well as St. Louis, both these teams are hitting their strides right now as they're going towards the playoffs, okay? So be alert on how they're going to play their players this weekend, especially for you sports bettors out there that want an edge. This is why I'm giving it to you and telling you exactly how I feel about these upcoming games for Week 10. This is going to be a rough weekend, rough weekend for sports bettors. I mean, if you don't want to touch any of these games this weekend, if you're a sports bettor and you're a guy that likes to just bet on anything, I don't blame you. I don't feel that much confident in any of these games. Like I said, you guys are going to have to mix and match. You guys are going to have to go with your hunches, trust your eyes on what you see. I'm looking at my notes, and even I'm not confident at some of the picks. This is why I jump on them early, and then I proved it on my previous video over the weekend, Memorial Day weekend, when I went to the sports book. The lines changed. I went in there with a whole sheet of who I was going to pick and everything. I get to the window, and the guy's telling me, okay, you can't money line and spread pick at the same time. You have to separate the money line and the spread. So I don't know. It was we all know how it goes when you get to the sports book and you go to the window, how this all works out. So I had to mix and match. It didn't work out well. And then I went straight with my hunches. And again, if St. Louis would have covered and DC would have won and took care of business, I'd be sitting here 12-0. But DC flopped. They ran into a hornet's nest with the Roughnecks. They came to play the Roughnecks. And Jalen McClendon played well. The receivers from the Houston Roughnecks really just had a field day with the secondary of the DC Defenders. Just don't understand what's going on back there with those guys because they're too talented to be giving up yardage like that. But, again, I'm looking at my notes and I'm seeing a lot of things. Oh, by the way, you got to give a shout out to Kay Johnson, the wide receiver for the Birmingham Stallions. That was a phenomenal catch. He went up in the air. The defender looked like he had great coverage on him. And just like his number, just like the great Lynn Swann of the Pittsburgh Steelers, he went up in the air just like Lynn Swann. They fought for the ball in midair. He won the battle, came down with it. And I thought he had scored, but unfortunately, I think as they came down, he was touched. Great catch down that sideline. Just a wonderful, wonderful play by Kay Johnson, number 88 of the Birmingham Stallions. Was a key play in that game, too. Was a key play. And then I got to say, when you got talented receivers like that, that's hard to stop. And going up this weekend against the Memphis Showboats, they got their hands full. This is another reason why all the money's going to roll on the Stallions. Be careful with that because, again, we don't know how the coaching staff for the Stallions are going to play these guys. It could be a blowout in the first half. And then, like good sports bettors, they might take bets in the first half and then just stay away from the second half because usually games in the finales are played differently, and this looks like one of those games. I'm taking a -6.5. They should win the game by 10 or 7. But once they start pulling players, it depends who's going to play because they're a much talented team. They don't want to risk injury. That -6.5 could be a +6.5 in the second half for most sports bettors. Remember, there's great sports bettors out there. We're just amateurs. At least I am. I'm just trying to give you an early edge. And the way I look at these games, right? Sayosi Mariner, 5 receptions, I believe 115 yards, 1 touchdown for the Michigan Panthers. Fantastic game. Just another target for either Bryce Perkins if he comes back or for your boy Danny Etling, right? So just another receiver to talk about. You have Vaughns on one side, and now you have Sayosi Mariner, if I'm pronouncing his name. Don't mean to be disrespectful. I hope I'm pronouncing his name correctly. To go with a running game of Nate McCrary and Toa Tawa, okay? Number 35. Okay, if Bryce Perkins is healthy, and that's a big if right now. I just don't know his status. I keep looking around, I'm getting all different reports. He was in the running for the MVP. The team took off when he took over at quarterback. But Danny Etling this past weekend played very well. It looks like the coaching staff called plays in his favor that fit him. But going towards the playoffs and this final game, he's going to have to play more to convince me that he will be able to carry this team further in the playoffs. But if Bryce Perkins plays, he's going to have to play this game. You can't go into the playoffs being cold or you didn't play at all. But he's, again, this is a game, Roughnecks at Michigan. This is a game where on paper you take the Panthers, right? They're the more talented team, the better coaching staff. But look at the way the Roughnecks came out and threw everyone for a loop this weekend against DC. So, again, I'm looking at my notes and, I think pretty much I covered everything, right? Yet another running back came out of nowhere to make a name for himself. Lorenzo Lingard just took over and just destroyed the defense of the defenders. I mean, he was running. I mean, did you see that one play where he got the carry, went through the interior line, knocked over a couple of linebackers, and then it was hard to bring him down. It was like 3 guys hanging on him before they brought him down. So it's another guy that Houston has now. And guess what? He's going to be going into this final game. He doesn't care what your record is. He's going to try to not hurt you. So, so again, I'm going to show you the whiteboard again, right? So this way you can see what I wrote. Not guaranteed. Um, okay. That's what the whiteboard looks like for this weekend. Final weekend of the UFL regular season before we head into the playoffs. I'm looking forward to that. But this is how I'm rolling for week 10 with the early lines. Trying to give you that early edge, right? Trying to give you that early edge. That's what I do. Trust your eyes, people. I know you guys are good sports bettors out there. I know there are very sharp ones out there that know what they're doing better than a lot of people like me. We're amateurs, right? I mean, that I can say I'm an amateur. I'm not there yet. We did see lightning and rain prevent the game from starting at its usual time, right? Seems to be a big issue when there's lightning. Teams get pulled off the field. So that was a late start, right? I believe it was that Memphis game, right? That was a late start. Renegades at Memphis. Maybe it played out that way because of the late start. Who knows? But again, weather does factor in. If weather factors in any of these games, and that's something I really never touched on during the season, and that's my bad for not mentioning that. Weather always plays a part in these games, okay? So if there's a weather situation, always take that into consideration, right? Great sports bettors do that, especially sharps. Sharps are good with these lines. They know what to look for. They see weaknesses where we don't, and they see strengths where we don't see them either, right? We're just like me. I'm an amateur sports bettor. I love betting football. That's what I do. I love it. But I'm not as great as those guys. They find the weaknesses, but we do try our best, right? We had that 11-1 weekend run, and then we didn't do bad this weekend. It was 8-3-1, right? We didn't expect the DC defenders to blow that game at all. If DC had covered every part of that, we go 3-0. We have another 11-1 weekend. Okay, so we're still ahead, right? My overall record with the money line is 24-12 for the season. Okay. My over and unders, I'm 17-10-1. I'm thinking that the over and under in that defenders game was a push, right? It was supposed to go over 46, but it ended up under 45 and a half. So if it ended at 45, it should have been a victory for me. That's what I'm thinking, not a push. It should be victory. But if I have this wrong, leave it in the comments. Because if it is a victory, then my record would be 9-3 instead of 8-3-1, right? And then the spread, we did well. We went 3-1 to give us 20 victories, 11 losses, and 1 tie on the spread, right? We could all do better than that. There are great sports bettors out there that are probably doing better than us. But like I said, right, we keep it real, right? We're amateurs here, right? We're amateur sports bettors. I'm looking forward to the playoffs. I'm looking forward to this weekend. This is going to be a tough weekend for everybody. So let's be real. As the week goes along, like I said, you got a couple of spreads here like that. That first game, St. Louis and DC. Right now, they got St. Louis as the underdog, right? And we all know St. Louis is a much better team right now than DC, although DC is going to argue, bullshit, we're much better. We proved it before. We're much better than them. Well, they're going to have to play their starters because the showing you gave us against Houston Roughnecks was disappointing. And the way your secondary is playing is disappointing. Okay, so maybe you will be playing your starters. And Jordan Ta'amu, who's probably the MVP of the league, is probably going to play one half anyway, like he did this past weekend. But anyway, you took a loss. So if you want to claim that you're better than St. Louis, then come on and beat the pants out of them. But right now, as a sports bettor, I don't trust you guys. Let's be real. Shannon Harris continues to be my coach of the year, right? Because of the fact that he lost two coaches before the start of the first week of the season. They both went to college. Greg Williams and Reggie Barlow, who were their coaches a year ago and started the season. And then Shannon Harris said, wait a minute, we're still a solid team. We're not going to change nothing because these guys left. The talent is going to carry us. And to the most, let's be real, the talent has carried them, but Shannon Harris has done a good job too coaching. We've seen him on the sidelines, how he talks to his players, how he gets his players fired up. I think he needs to get a little bit back to that. especially when it comes to his defense. Maybe Greg Williams' son, who took over as the DC, needs to get his guys to play more discipline. And I think he's going to have a sit down with the secondary and say, hey, guys, we need bigger plays than this. You got wide receivers running roughshod against us. What's going on? Okay, so again, I think that pretty much covered everything that I was looking for this week 10, these week 10 matchups. Player props, I think you throw that out the window this weekend if you're looking for player props. I mean, like I said, this league is unpredictable week in and week out. It's really going to be unpredictable. Don't even bother with player props this weekend because we all know that certain teams want to be healthy going into the playoffs. Okay, they may not show much either. They may not even open up their playbooks. They may not even place the guys they've been playing all year long. So player props are out the window this weekend. That's my word of caution. Throw it out the window, guys. Don't even bother. Okay. I'm looking all around right now as the season comes to an end, and we will talk when the season ends. We'll talk about that in our next video. But if you saw my previous video where I was at Atlantic City at resorts, went to DraftKings, it was late during the week. The lines had changed. The over and unders were different. I lost all my 9-leg parlays and my 12-leg parlay I lost. So I lost $60. Again, did not hurt me at all. You bet small to win big. I had $10 parlays going, 6 different tickets at $10 each. Each ticket was over $400. Okay, I showed that on my video. I couldn't record as I was placing the bets, but I showed it after I placed the bets. Just to let you guys know that I do go to the sports book and place bets as well. Even though I take them on my apps early in the week, as the week goes along, you can see the lines changing. So as I saw on FanDuel and all the others like BetMGM and all of that, when I saw those lines changing, I figured, well, I'm going to be in Atlantic City anyway, right? I'm taking my wife so she could play the slot machines. And I said, you know what? I'll play a little bit of table games, and I'm also going to place more bets. It didn't hurt. It didn't hurt at all. Like I said, on my sports app, I won the early lines with the Renegades to go 3-0 and with the Stallions to go 3-0. So at least I won money back from those 2 games, okay? So I got back most of my money. In fact, I got back all of my money on the sports app. But as far as the sports book, I lost all of my money. And it was only $60. Didn't hurt me. I'm not crying over it. This is why I tell you guys, bet small to win big. Okay, unpredictable league. You got to be smarter than that, guys out there. I would prefer you guys don't gamble, okay? I always say that in my videos. I would prefer you guys don't gamble. Don't get involved in a business like this. Don't get involved in gambling. It could lead to disastrous results. Even though you might win the first time out, doesn't guarantee you're going to win every time you go out. So be smart, people, all right? I know it sounds hypocritical when I'm trying to give you sports picks and then end the video by saying, don't go gambling. But you have to always say that because you don't want to be responsible for someone who leaned on you or depended on you to save his life or something. You know what I mean? Don't gamble, man. Seriously. Don't gamble with money you need. Gamble with money you don't need. I didn't need those $60. I took money with me because I knew I was going to play on a craps table. I knew I already placed some bets on a sports app. So when I went to DraftKings, I was just waiting for them to open up. Disappointed that DraftKings at resorts in Atlantic City, it opens up at 2 p.m. Some people would say, well, you could have gone to the kiosk. The problem with that was that on Friday, for me to do my parlays, the only game they had available on that kiosk was the St. Louis and San Antonio game, the 8 o'clock game. And you saw it, you heard me say it and saw it on the video. That was disappointing. If they had the other games available for me to print out, I would have done it. Maybe, the results might have been different with single game parlays, but I went for the whole shemio. It was only $10. $60 did not hurt me. And this is why I tell people, catch that early line, save yourself, help yourself. And that's what I did. And hopefully it worked out. but it didn't. I lost those parlays. I did well on the craps tables. All right, I told you guys I play a lot of craps. So, when I'm at casinos, my wife does the slot machines. That's what she loves to do. I love sports betting with football, and I love playing table games, and I play craps. But in all seriousness, I prefer you guys don't gamble. Even if you watch my videos and think I'm giving you this edge, I don't want you to be a bad gambler, if there's such a thing. I don't want you to pin fault at anybody else. When you look in the mirror, be honest with yourself, trust your eyes, and say, hey, I'm venturing into something that's a little bit dangerous. Don't know what the results could be. I know a lot of people are in a rough situation and want to double their money, but don't gamble, okay? I'm a sports bettor. I put stuff out there for other sports bettors to enjoy. It's for entertainment purposes. I'm an amateur, okay, compared to other great sports bettors out there. There's people that get paid to give you their thoughts on the week's picks. I'm not one of those guys. I'm not looking for you to pay me for anything. I'm just giving you an edge. I'm just being as honest as, in fact, I am you. I am you. I'm an amateur sports bettor, okay? But we do have success every now and then. I mean, do we brag about it like everybody else? Of course. You could take part in that. You could say, hey, I did well. Hey, won 11-1 2 weekends ago. Oh, my God, that was awesome. Yeah, you could brag. Doesn't mean you're going to do it every weekend. Just like this past weekend, I went, 8-3-1? Could have been 9-3. Depends on how you viewers look at that over and under of that last game. I had taken the under. The overall was 46 combined points. Was 45 combined points, I'm sorry. So I took the under. So I don't know if I'm going to get that victory. But we try our best every weekend. I try to give you that edge. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please hit that like and subscribe button. Chucky Valentine, I know you're out there. Want to hear your comments. I hope you did well this weekend. I know it was a tough weekend. DC did not pull through for us, so he took some losses. So I know there's a lot of viewers out there who love to comment. All right, so I know I always try to, comment back for you guys, and hope you guys do better this weekend. I hope you guys did better than me this past weekend. And I hope we continue this success. We are doing well as the season's coming to an end. We hope we can close it out. This is by far the toughest weekend. Just like week one, the last weekend of the UFL is always the toughest for any sports bettor. So good luck with that this weekend. Hit the like and subscribe button. I'm Casino Pete, and I hope you enjoyed this video. See you next time.